Device. There it is. Okay, there we go. Wow. Right, yes. So where we're up to is this is going to be very hard to watch. So, hello. I just thought I'd stream it because why not? I've got an hour to kill. Yeah, I've got an hour to kill. So yeah, we're here in Blender for reasons. So basically, I'm a Modo lover. I'm a lover of Modo. Modo is basically awesome, but I am not sure I can continue using it because Modo got discontinued, and it's very sad. And but the thing is, if you run into a bug in Modo, it ain't getting fixed. All of the staff have been laid off. All the developers have been laid off. It's very sad times. Not to go too far into it. I blab a lot, so at some point I might go into it too much. But yeah, I have a personal history with Modo, and some of the people who got fired are like friends of mine and stuff, which is kind of lame. But anyway, we're here in Blender, and it's not a case of relearning Blender. If you've been on my YouTube channel before, but then why would you? In the past, I made something called Blender Remix, which was a heavily modified version of Blender. In fact, actually, I could probably, hopefully, open it. Have a look. 2.83. Let's give it a go. I'm on Windows, which means my life is pain. Right, let's give this an open. Let's see if Remix will boot. Is it going to boot? Is it going to boot? It's buggy. I wrote myself something called Remix, which was something I did kind of over COVID, because, COVID. Yay, there we go, Blender Remix, where basically it's like a heavily modified version of Blender, which I got very used to. And I use Blender, so in my life, I'm generally, most of the time I'm a product designer, but I do a lot of 3D as well. And occasionally I've done it professionally over the course of my career. So I do a lot of 3D, even when I'm not doing it for work. I do it a lot in my spare time. It's one of my great passions. I really enjoy it. And over COVID, I was doing some 3D work. The story goes, I was doing some client work. I was making some Zoom backgrounds. This is such a COVID story. Where they wanted like a background of like a faux 3D neon sign on a series of various different combinations of them to use in these Zoom calls, because obviously everyone was on Zoom, and they wanted to look professional. So I had a bunch of variants. I was using Modo at the time. I was using the inbuilt renderer, which was it's like the Modo's got its own CPU based renderer. It's very, very, very nice. It's a beautiful renderer, but it's CPU based, therefore slow. And I had not gotten onto the GPU rendering bandwagon yet. And I was faced down with a few iterations to make in a very short period of time. They had a hard deadline for when they wanted to have these things ready by, and they wanted to see some variants. And at the time, they'd done it like 2.5K. These individual images were rendering in about 45 minutes each, which was very long. And I think about 20 permutations of it to do. So, and they might have changed their minds again, right? So like, I had to, it's a lot of hours. That's like almost a day's worth of full rendering, right, per iteration, which is obviously a big time sink. So I was sort of back up against it, and I was like, oh, I've heard cycles is fast. So I opened it up and reconstructed my same scene in Blender for shits and gigs. Did it in cycles, and my render time went down to 1.5 minutes per frame. And from that point onwards, I was very much on the GPU rendering bandwagon. Instantly, and at that time, the only option for Modo was they had V-Ray for a while, but they had Octane, which I didn't know. I've subsequently become a huge fan of Octane, which is why I'm here today. So I was using cycles a load, but I hated Blender, and not so much I hate Blender. Blender is good, it's really good, but it's not amazing. It's not as good as everyone makes out, but it's pretty decent. The usability in Blender kind of sucks bum, and I went through this entire process over the course of almost a year while I was working on other stuff and also being very, very COVID up to the eyeballs, as it was. Everyone's indoors. I heavily modified a version of Blender, and it's not add-ons, it's core. This is it. This is Remix. It might crash at any time. I've not used it in a while. because I then got a job after COVID was finished. I worked at a company where doing 3D became a big part of my day job again for a while. I worked at an agency, and I was like, oh, okay, I'd only use Remix for a couple of jobs, but they're quite small, and this was like all day long in like Blender at this point. I was like, oh, I'm happy here for now, whatever. I've made all these changes, and like some of the fundamentals of Blender. Also, this is based on 2.8, which is old. It was current in 2020. And I tied it to a long-term release because I thought that was diligent. I didn't realize how long long-term releases are going to be in Blender land. They don't last very long. They develop so quickly. And I didn't want to commit to doing all the updates. I was going to release it like publicly, but there's loads of work to do under the hood to tidy things up, and there's some like proprietary code that doesn't belong to me in here that I had to pull back out again because I wrote it for myself. So I was like, I can't be bothered to release it. And I tried using it in anger day in, day out at this company, and it just crapped its pants. There's some things that Blender does really badly. Geometry handling is one of them. Modo has a bad reputation for geometry handling, but Blender's worse. At least 2.8 is. I've used newer versions of Blender since. I don't think it's meaningfully better. And I had to go back to Modo. And at the same time going back to Modo, I also then took the time to then learn Octane. And this is in 2022, I want to say. And 2023, maybe, early 2023. And subsequently, I've spent my last, while back in Modo land, and also using Octane. And Octane's my favorite renderer now. I love it, and I have no desire to really use any other renderers. I like Cycles a lot too. It's just, put simply, it's just not as good as Octane. It just isn't. And the bit of 3D I'm kind of best at or most versed in is not actually modeling. It's the rendering and like material stuff is my jam. Been doing it for like, I don't know how long, a lot of years, circa 20 sort of thing. So I'm pretty well versed, and that is my long-term opinion, is that Cycles is really cool, but it's very good for a free renderer. It's nowhere near my favorite renderer. It's pretty good. I quite like it, but Cycles is just better. Octane's just better, and Octane's default is extremely realistic and very chunky, and the camera feels great. It feels like you're moving a real physical camera. There's a vibe. Octane has a vibe to it. There's a flavor to it. It's quite easy to get very realistic things really quickly, and it's a very expressive render engine, whereas Cycles is a little bit more fiddly, and things like reflectivity and stuff in Cycles kind of sucks. It's the way the rays get fired around or something. It's like was it forward tracing? So it's like rays emanate from the camera and they stop what they hit, and they don't really bounce outside the camera frustum, is my understanding. So it's not true ray tracing. It's still ray tracing, but it's like a different flavor of ray tracing, right? But it has a degree of limited ability to gather information about the scene and the lighting conditions of the scene beyond what the camera sees, right? Not to say it can't, but it's limited in that respect. Whereas Octane is more of a truer, unbiased renderer, and I think it's unbiased. Octane is unbiased. Redshift is biased. But yeah, so Octane's ray tracing is just an awful lot better. It has things like caustics built in. There's several render kernels inside Octane. You don't just have one. It's not just Octane. Octane's like a suite of different mini render engines. So you've got a lot of flexibility, and yeah, Octane's super flexible. I love it. But Blender also supports Octane, and I am doing a little thing at the minute, and Modo keeps crashing. And there's no one gonna do it. So I'm toying with the idea of going back to Blender, but I can't use Blender in its vanilla form anymore, and this is what's ruined it for me. So earlier today, not even earlier today, a minute ago, this is Blender Octane Edition. I'm not using the free version, I'm using the paid studio version, but you can actually get Octane in Blender for free. I think also they've got a plugin which I think is sort of like in the works. The default is now they have their own build of Blender, which is by the by. I have no feelings about it either way. And yeah, so I'm going to get back to grips with using Blender in the context of Octane, but also I wouldn't mind on a slower boil moving over some of my favourite features. Is he open yet? My favourite features from this over to vanilla Blender in the context of doing an add-on, so I don't have to maintain them as well. Because a lot of what this boils down to, the things I use every day, there's actually a lot of features in Remix, and most of them, after using it for like a couple of years after I built most of it, I don't really use. But there's a handful that I can't really go back from. and they're surprisingly minor. So there's this thing on the left hand side, which is like the context toolbar. I don't actually use this really ever. It's just like a deeper dive. This is one of the first things I wrote in Remix, where it has like access to tools, so you can click and add shit like booleans and do a turntable render straight from here, do play blasts, that kind of stuff. I don't really use any of that ever. And the whole thing, the whole ethos, I guess, behind Remix was Blender's very pecky. It's very, you have to know where buttons are, right? You have to memorize. So all of these, you have to know which one's which, and they're not super logical. You have to know where things are. And Blender also hides quite a lot of functionality as well. The menus are not organized super well. So it started off really early on, reorganizing some menus, and then I built this, and then I built this guy, which is my main features. And the idea was, instead of just moving menus around, it would be expose the tools that contextually makes the most sense based on your selection, and also lots of small UX tweaks. So like, for example, this uses a more industry standard control map instead of the Blender one, which I just can't get used to. If you're somebody who's not from a Blender background, WER is baked into every 3D person's memory because it's what everyone else uses. Every other or most applications use this, the sort of Maya way of doing things. Same with like navigation is on Alt. Selections feel weird in Blender if you come from other applications. This is de-weirded. But then as I got further down the road, I started like merging the ideas I liked from Blender into the things I liked in Remix. So things like, I quite like, the old school non-gizmo way of scaling things in Blender. So I press R to do the scale gizmo, or double R, which does that one. Little things like that. Or, for example, the biggest single feature, I can even hide this, in Remix is probably this guy here, which is the context properties bar. Now this, I don't know how I can recreate with add-ons, because it sort of hacks at the core of Blender a little bit. So we've hijacked the tool tab, and I populate it with options based on what you've got selected, and this updates based on what you're doing. So like, let's say, so let's say like I've got two cubes. Let's do one cube, and then we'll just do another cube, and then we'll move this one over here, move this one like there, I guess. And then if you want to do a boolean, we can do it the normal way, but Bool Tools is built in, so if I just do like difference, for example, then when I have this object selected, it shows you in context the boolean applied to it. And it does it for a lot of different stuff, but that's just one example of what it does. And basically it removes the need for this end menu, which I really hate. I super hate this thing. It's just a dumb idea, and it brings it into the main interface. That was the original idea, but it's went on for a while. Again, I used this to actually build real stuff and worked with it for ages. And look, there we go, a nice little little bug there, because it's also riddled with bugs. But yeah, the main thing I'd probably bring over is this guy here, the context pie, because there's other little utility things here. So there's like, if you use Blender, there's this context of this idea of like pressing tab to go from object to edit. It just slows you down. So I just press 3. Like when I go straight into like polygon mode, instead of pressing tab 3, I can just press 3. So if I go back into object mode and just pressing 3, it just drops me straight in. Also, the idea of having object versus, again, if you come from Modo specifically, the idea of having object versus edit isn't a thing in Modo. In fact, that's just open Modo and show you what I mean. It works very differently there. It works better, basically. So one of the things that Modo gets super duper right is, so let's go to here and I'll create myself a sphere. Let's bring it in the viewport. There we go. So yeah, selections and Modo are just selections, right? So I have what's called the 5 select, which is like your object mode, which is this one here. Press 1, 2, 3, or 5. They're just selections. I don't have to have separate modes. I just have an object style selection, and then I have a polygon style selection. It's just, and then like also it's got a concept of nothing selected, everything selected. So if I just press W now and I'm in object mode or polygon mode, sorry, it will just move in the same way as it would in object mode, apart from it moves locally instead of globally. So my global position won't change. And then if I go here, obviously it will move my global position rather than my position of my geometry inside. It's a really nice way to work, and also it's very fast. It's extremely fast, and it was never about copying Modo, but like ideas from it obviously went in. I've spent a long time using Modo a lot, And the ideal scenario would be the development mode would continue. That unfortunately isn't happening. Yeah, so here we are. So what was really the point of the stream? I don't know. I can't do any of this right now. I need to think about how I'd approach doing some of this. Like this, let's say I want to move something here. Give me an example of some stuff, some little nice things. This is Control A menu, right? For applying things. Again, you have to know to do this. You have to know that's on Control A because this is Blender, right? And then like, see, even if you right click in, let's go back to vanilla Blender here, or vanilla-ish Blender. Go back to the layout. And if I just do the same thing again, make a cube, right, and then move it. Where are we? And then first off, I have to remember, and also I don't remember this sort of stuff because I don't need to. You have to remember where this is inside the tabs. So, and then, yeah, where is my apply? It's not there. There's no context to how I'd apply that, right? Whereas I just pop up this little thing saying apply location, or if I rotate it, it will then pop up saying apply rotation, or if I scale it, it will say apply scale, and I can just do this, right? As well as like dimensions doesn't show up in Blender by default, which is really dumb. Dimensions are, so you got scale, but dimensions live inside the end menu. I think it's like, where is it? Item? There you go. Yeah, dimensions live here for reasons, you know, like it's this kind of stuff. It's don't know why it's annoying me so much. Oh dear. Oh no, is it going to crash? I think it's going to crash. Well, I did say it was buggy. I did warn you. Well, that was remix. But yeah, like there's a lot of like quality of life things. There's too many sort of cover. But the main thing I miss is the context thing because I hate digging through these menus. It's so annoying. And things like going to modify. I mean, I don't like modifiers anyway in general as an idea. But like modifiers being here and then like transform stuff being here. Apart from I think some. Yeah, like what? I've always hated it. Cue people going, oh, you don't get it, but it's like, no, it's not about getting it. It's about you being used to something. Because you're used to something doesn't mean it's good, right? Separate the idea of what you're used to being the good thing versus a good thing irrelevant of being what you're used to. Like, I'm not saying everything this does is perfect. This is riddled with stupid ideas, but there's some things core to this application that are done really, really well. I can divorce that from what I'm used to, right? So. Part of the reason why I didn't like being in Blender too much because the users are really annoying. Sorry, not all of you. Hashtag not all Blender people, but there's a certain subset of Blender hobbyists that just boil my piss because they're like, oh, my application's the best one ever. No, it's not. It's just another one. They're all good in different ways. But yeah, like the idea is either I'm going to move back into Blender or I'll bite the bullet and get into Maya. I don't know Maya super well. And I haven't used it in quite a long time. But yeah, the choice would be between Blender and Maya. Both will support. I think, like, yeah, you can get Octane in Maya. I'm pretty sure you can. I need to double check actually. Let's have a look. Let's have a look while we're here. I realise we're just chatting bollocks now, aren't we? Yeah, it's in Maya. So yeah, the alternative would be I'd get like a version of Maya Indie or something. You can use it if you earn less than $1 billion or whatever it is. I don't know. Maya Indie is actually pretty reasonably priced. But I have to relearn Maya. And yeah, I've not used Maya properly since about 2009. So I went from 3ds Max back in the 2000s because I'm old, which I really liked because I discovered Mental Ray and I was like, wow, you can do reflections. Whoa, mind blowing. And I got really used to 3ds Max when I was like into my early 20s, and then I moved from that to Cinema 4D because at one point I was considering becoming a motion designer instead of like at the time I was a graphic designer / like web developer kind of person. So I got into C4D and I really liked C4D. It took me a long way. I learned a lot of stuff, and then I was working at the Foundry, the company that bought Modo. They make Nuke and Mario and that sort of stuff. And when they announced the acquisition of Luxology, which was who developed Mode at the time, I was a designer there. I was like the main creative designy boy in the company. And the chief sales officer said, you're learning Modo, because I worked within the marketing team and no one knew how the tools worked apart from me. So I was like the guy on the inside who understood how the tools worked. So yeah, I was tasked with learning Modo, and I got dragged kicking and screaming, and then I learnt Modo, and I loved it, and I went back until Blender. Anyway, so we're in Blender Octane Edition. We're going to try and remember how any of this works, and I might be a little bit slow because, again, I've not been using Blender recently, especially not in its vanilla state. Let's see if I can get Remix open again, because Remix is cool. Yeah, so there's no Octane in here. What do we have render-wise? We have, here's another thing from Remix. I have render settings up here where they make sense. I have LuxCore. LuxCore's a really cool renderer, but it's very slow. But yeah, I need to refer back to this to remember where things are, because I don't use vanilla Blender very often. So, the basics should be pretty straightforward. If I am in here with my, so it's a little bit messy it seems, so I've got cycles selected, I click new, it'll create me a cycles material, and I remember, if I remember correctly, because I have played this a little bit at some point, around the time I got into Octane, or I think I saw it as a thing, because I had to, like, back when I was like using Blender a lot, I had some frustrations with cycles, because yeah, it's got like, it's got some stuff, it's like got some weird foibles. Like cycles is generally pretty good, but sometimes it kind of fights you a little bit in a way that I wasn't used to. Every render engine is different. If you use more than one, they've all got different flavors. They've all got different sort of like vibes, I guess. You can learn them really well, and you kind of commit to them, right? So you get to know some and others, and then you get to know the sort of the ways around and stuff. But yeah, and there's used to be features missing inside cycles as well, which have been fixed subsequently. Like light linking wasn't a thing, so I used to do a lot of product shots. And for product shots, light linking's like just a prerequisite. That is to, like, you have a light that only affects a certain piece of geometry, or maybe this light doesn't cast shadows, or, you know, there's like lots of things like for basically unrealistic, unphotoreal lighting. For things like product shots, you do that constantly because you have to have that degree of control. There's lots of little things that I kind of hated. Anyway, let's go back to my points to delete that. So if we change this back to from cycles to Octane, let's make sure Octane's working right. Kernel, yeah, so here we are in Octane. It's got multiple kernels. So there's like, the simple way to put it is direct lighting is crazy fast. It's really basic. It's not really for anything. I guess you could use some stuff. I never do, because Octane's really quick. That's another thing, is Octane is faster than Cycles as well. There's not tons in it, but there's a point at which Cycles kind of has a cliff that it gets to in terms of speed and performance that Octane just carries on chugging through. But it is, generally speaking, faster. Like, if you do certain test scenes, they'll be 1-to-1, depending on what you're doing. Like, comparisons are kind of pointless. Needless to say, in general, depending on what you're doing, Octane's faster, and with more complex material setups, Octane especially gets faster, and with heavier scenes, Octane's faster. In fact, a lot of times Cycles has a tendency to sometimes crash. Octane basically never crashes. It's just like, it's like a production level renderer. It's like been used in anger on a lot more stuff than Cycles. Not saying Cycles, again, not saying Cycles is bad. It's just there's like a big history of Octane. It's a very well loved renderer, basically. And I've tried most renderers at this point. Apart from, I haven't done much Redshift, really. Not much V-Ray either. V-Ray never really got round to. By the time I got into so I got into Modo around the same time I would have been getting into V-Ray, but Modo's CPU renderer is extremely similar to V-Ray, to be honest. In fact, at the time, before V-Ray was a bit more GPU based, Modo's renderer was faster. So for a CPU renderer, Modo's renderer is actually really quick, but it's obviously trounced by any GPU-based renderer, which is part of the reason why I don't use it so much. But it's a gorgeous, gorgeous render. Like, it's not aged out in any way. It's a fantastic, gorgeous render. If you see some of like the nicest, because it's very good for product shots especially. It's another reason why I like Modo so much, for the sort of thing I did. It was incredible. As a product shot renderer, Modo renders have this sort of very, very clean. They can obviously do photorealism, but it has this very clean, pristine, almost hyper-real look to it. If you want it to do that, it's a fantastic render. I loved it so much, but it's just too slow. Basically, I'm GPU pilled. Anyway, let's stop waffling. So yeah, kernels aside, I just got to try and remind myself how to use materials in Blender Octane, basically. So right, I don't think we're doing any modeling in Blender, because Blender modeling is I'm not staying on topic very well, but no one's watching, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, Blender modeling, for modeling actually, I think Blender's really good in fact, as it goes. Like from what I've used, which is what, C4D, 3ds Max, Modo, Maya. Did I say 3ds Max? I've done a little tiny bit of Houdini. Obviously, Houdini's not a modeler, but you know you can technically model in Houdini. I would probably say Blender is. If I knew Maya better, I'd probably say Maya's better, but Blender's pretty good. It is pretty good. The this thing, 3D cursor thing, I hate this little fucking thing. That excluded, it's a really good modeling system actually, really good. Modo's the gold standard. It just is, and that's not even like a matter of opinion really. Like all the ideas you get, which because that's the thing. Sorry, I'm not staying on top. I'm just talking to myself really. But yeah, the thing that happened with Modo was it was really hot shit, and then they didn't move a lot. They sort of like did a lot of diverse things, in part because they got bought by the Foundry, and the motivation at the time was to try and get, like, the thing with Modo was it was like the modeler's modeler, right? So you'd always have one guy in every studio who had Modo, and they were normally the best modeler in the building, right? Because they knew they got it, right? They got it. And but like it had this really good rap, very buggy, and they wanted to get it into production. They wanted to get into VFX. They were not interested because the stranglehold of, and this is from the Foundry, a very, very well embedded. Nuke is, as industry standard as it gets, Nuke is harder to displace than probably any tool in post-production. People don't really realize that, because compositors like the glue of everything you do in post-production. They're like it's where everything sort of coalesces in comp, and Nuke has such a stranglehold on it because there is just no credible competition. And I say that as someone who uses like Blackmagic Fusion regularly and really likes it. It's nowhere near the capabilities of Nuke, not even close. It's a very good compositor, but it's just not going to happen. No one's going to, like, it would take a miracle at this point for someone to unseat Nuke as the de facto compositor, and the Foundry are, you know, good stewards of Nuke as well. Anyway, so they had the best chance in the world to be a company to, you know, and Mari's very prevalent, Katana less so, but like they were very well poised to get this product into VFX houses, and they couldn't. No one wanted to buy it. So when people say like, oh, the industry's moving to Blender, it's not going to happen really. Like in terms of like a mass shift away from Maya, that won't ever really happen. And for reasons beyond, there's a video on YouTube actually that got a lot of negative. It had a really bad title, like the CG industry hates Blender. They don't hate Blender. They're indifferent to it. The title was wrong, but the message was correct. And like it was ultimately the situation with pipelines is even if they wanted to move away from Maya, which spoilers they don't. Most of the artists don't. The amount of work, the pipeline's worth more than the tool, right? And there's R&D budgets. I mean, I would wager that some studios have, like Weta probably have a bigger R&D team, full-time R&D team than the Blender Foundation, put it that way, right? Like building stuff internally, like DreamWorks do, like Disney, etc. They all have their own software engineers building their own software. Disney especially, and DreamWorks to an extent, for a long time, didn't have any external tools at all. They would just use their own shit that they wrote. And these tools weren't like spit and sawdust. They were like incredibly good tools. They write their own renderers, etc. So like, it's not about the product. They can build their own products. It's about how that fits their needs. And you've got all this tooling, decades worth of tooling, and then you've got like an army of artists who are experienced in it. And depending on the setup, depending on the studio, they care less, but sometimes they're very rigid. You can't just move that. And also, what's the benefit? You know, there's the big killer, the big reason why Blender probably won't offset Maya is a really simple one. Is Autodesk are a terrible company, but you can pick up the phone if you are ILM, right? And you pick up the phone and you say, I have a bug. It's a problem. Autodesk will fix it. They'll fix it that day if they can, right? They have these site licenses worth millions. And in the M&E, so Media Entertainment, the division of Autodesk that does all of their sort of 3D tools, 3ds Max, Maya, etc., it's such a small part of their business unit. All their money is in like Inventor and like AutoCAD and like to a lesser extent Fusion. This is like the smallest part of the pie, but they will just fix it. And just having support and having someone, you can get them to develop things for you. It's called CDC, a custom development contract. You can have them develop tools for you, which people have done with Blender as well to an extent, but this happens much more frequently with like companies like Autodesk and Maxon and all that lot. Side Effects, all these companies. And yeah, you have someone inside one of these businesses improving this tool for you specifically, and it may not make it into a public release, and it may make it into a public release. You don't get that with Blender. You're on your own, and the overhead of grappling with an open source tool and all the history that goes with it without support of the engineers, because they can't, right? Like the number of seats, the installations of Blender will eclipse Maya, because a lot of them are hobbyists and whatever. It's free, right? The barrier to entry is very low. The sort of the floor to quality is obviously much higher, but like you don't get that many professionals, relatively speaking, using Blender. And also, there's no like if there's a company like a development house that said, as a third party, we will fix things in Blender for you, there's probably some sort of business there and probably exists already. But also, you're at the whims of an open source community, and also, although it's an open source tool, Blender's not really run, their core development's not super open. It's not as open as you think it is. They have their own agenda, which you get input into, but like they are run almost like their own private software house to an extent. It is open source. I'm not saying it's completely closed, but it's not as open as you probably like to think it is, because they need to be productive. And a lot of open source projects of that size struggle with productivity because they're they can get so bogged down with the you have a lot of users in an open space with a lot of different agendas, and you're getting pulled in all directions all at once. And most successful large open source projects have what's called a benevolent dictator for life, right? Like a core team that steer this direction, and to an extent have to choose when to ignore the community. It's just a sad fact of open source. It's kind of, it's obvious when you think about it, right? You have millions of people using a piece of software that you can't make them all happy all at once. And the Blender Foundation do an incredible job of stewarding this tool and building out features. I think there are too many features, to be honest. And a lot of their recent successes do some good infrastructural decisions and also focusing down on some really useful things. I'm going so off topic here. I'm sure I had a reason to talk today. But yeah, you can't really have that happen, right? You can't have the Blender Foundation. To an extent, they can, but not as much as Autodesk or Side Effects or Maxon or whoever. So yeah, we'll just do that for you today, ILM, because they're not getting paid, right? And part of the reason why you've got the Blender Development Fund is you have some, like if you like Ubisoft or whoever, put money into the Blender Foundation. And I think part of that was to have some tools, I think some rigging tools or some animation tools built for them. That's a transaction ultimately, right? It benefits everyone, but it's still a transaction. And a lot of development contracts for other companies work in the same way. But you can't have that at the same pace because they're answerable to more people than just you. And if the community picked up on like, oh, why are they spending so much time working on something like, USD? I don't need USD. I'm a hobbyist. While the last 3 releases to do with like skeletal mesh systems, like I don't need that. I want more, but whatever. Like, yeah, why are they working so much on like importing like IO crap and like all these API changes don't affect the mass majority? The community get pissed off because it's not of any use to them. So, anyway, that's the real reason. It's mostly support. It's age, comfort, support. Anyway, I'm going to stop chatting bollocks and start going back into what I'm here to do. So we're going to try and make ourselves something. Let's make ourselves a Crystal Suzanne head. Why not? Mesh, monkey, and then we're going to do... I can't remember the keyboard shortcut. Is it Control 2, 3, 1? No. What's the default key? I'll just do it this way. Add modifier, search, subdivision surface, there we go, and then we'll turn that up, boop, 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 there we go, and then, okay, right, so, I'm an Octane, right, so what was in for? Yeah, kernels. Bunch of kernels in Octane, it's not one renderer, it's like multiple, so we've got direct lighting, which is like a kind of a basic guy, let's turn that on, and it doesn't do like complex, let's just do a new material here. It doesn't really do like complex, it's not for complex materials effectively, it can do some simple stuff. But no one uses that because it's there we go, it's direct. Is it going on? Direct? let's just try path tracing. Incompatible or blah 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 blah. Let's delete that. And then we'll do kernel, path tracing, new. Okay. That's not... That's weird. Show octane viewport. Is this the... Yeah, it's the default octane viewport. Okay. So... Okay. So what does it say what I'm using? It does not. So I go into log, and then does it say what? Nothing useful there. Yeah. So change your engine to Octane. Turn this on. It's just you're just in Octane, and it's yeah, it's pretty quick. Right. So. But is that actually changing kernels? I want to be... So yeah, we've got direct. The main ones you think about, right, are PMC, path tracing, and direct. You don't need to worry about the rest of this. PMC is like the big daddy. You'd use this if you want really, really accurate, like photon tracing type stuff. So if you're doing something like a render at the bottom of a pool, or you're doing like crystals, right, or you just have GPUs burning holes in your pocket, and you want to wait 10 times longer for your renders. This is like the most full fat version, but really, actually, 9 times out of 10, you just use what's going on here. You just use the path tracing kernel. This is like your go-to everyday guy. Let's go to here in mode. I'll show you here. Give it a second. Will that work? Because I've got... Oh, it will work. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so this is like... Let's have a look. We go under settings. Nope, wrong one. There we go. And go to kernel. Yeah, we're on path tracing by default on here. So direct light is like a... Let's just give this a material. Course 1 guy. And then we'll come up here. That's how this works in Modo, by the way. And then we'll change this. Let's leave it on glossy. Let's leave it on glossy. And then we'll turn our roughness to 0. And then in our environment, we'll just do daylight environment. There we go. And we've got a glossy sphere boy. Can you see? Look at that little hotspot there. So if I turn this back to direct lighting, do path tracing, it looks the same. But if I do something like this and I go convert to specular, which is like it's like Octane speak for transparent, I guess. It's one of the main materials. So we've got like a red guy now, and then let's just go to... We have no roughness. We'll just do energy preserving. There we go. That was close enough. Right, and then yeah, if you go back into kernel, and then change this back to direct lighting. See, she's not a good. So if we just duplicate this. There you go. And like, yeah, direct lighting is like for simpler interaction. So if we try this again and change it back from direct lighting into path tracing, you can see difference in lighting. It's a very shit example what I'm showing you here. But, trust me, it makes a difference. You basically don't want to use the... Well, I mean, you can. If you're doing some basic stuff, you can. It's the fastest. So let's just let's change this up to... and we're not using a particularly... Let's just do 150 samples. We're using a particularly fancy GPU here. That's finished already. We're using a RTX 2070. But yeah, we can see it's down here. This is our shading rate, and we're finished in 3 seconds. And then if you go to path tracing... Sorry, go to direct lighting. That's going to happen a lot quicker. That happens in 2 seconds. It's a shit example. If I go to PMC... So go to PMC, it's going to take even longer. See how much longer that is for basically the same result? 93, 139, 8 seconds. There we go. See, that's the difference. Explained very simply. It's not a very good example. It's a really bad example. Anyway, let's go back to this. I'm sorry. I can't. I've got to finish in 25 minutes. Right, so. But is this kernel working? Let's just do default. That's not Disconnect. What is going on here? So this is how we can soak. We're going to change this material. So we go to, let's open that up, and we'll go to surface. We'll change this to, where are we? Specular. There we go. Right, got transparent Suzanne. I wish it would tell me which. What are we in? Roughness. That looks like that looks like photons. That looks like, it doesn't look like direct lighting. So look, so go to here. Kernel, direct lighting. Kernel, PMC. Nothing changes. Octane what's going on here? So I think. Right. Okay, that's fired off a new change. So let's see what happens. Scene initializing. And I can run both of these simultaneously because it's the paid version of Octane. It's not the free guy. Well, that's just absolutely pooped its pants. Let's go to cycles quickly. There we go. That's going to work. So I think there's also a setting in here where you can use. So actually, it's a fun thing Octane does in general, right? I'm going to show you. Let me show you a Modo. I'm supposed to be doing a video about Blender. Yeah. So come over to here, and I'll create a teapot. Why not? There we go. Look at that. Wow. And then yeah, like teapot, teapotty. Fine, whatever. So if we do render here, we'll see the old school. This is the Modo renderer. This is the Modo CPU renderer, and this preview back in the day, this was like game changer. Pure game changer. Not so much now, but yeah, you can see it's pretty quick. And this is, see, I've got a pretty powerful CPU in this. I've got like a higher end Ryzen, like 24 thread guy, so it's pretty quick on the CPU front. So it's not very representative of most people's computers, but either way, yeah, Modo's render is pretty cool. Let's do an add layer. Let's just do. I haven't done this in a while. Let's do gradient. Why not? And then we just middle click. There we go. Color. Open it up. Boop. Wow. Would you look at that? But yeah, this is the basics of how Modo's render work. But here's the thing. I've chosen a bad example once again because what Octane does, it tries to find. Of course, it tries to find. Let's do this instead. Let's just change this to diffuse color. There we go. Yeah. So Octane will try and approximate. It'll, without having set up a specific Octane material, it will approximate the one that you use in the thing. So if I've just set up like some basic properties in my default material here, so let's just like turn the roughness down. That should just work. I'm going to set up a specific Octane material. So the same thing should happen, wrong version, in Blender. Let's just create a new one though, because that one has crapped itself. Let's go to here, mesh, monkey. Dupe, subdivision surface. There we go, and then turn that up. One key press in Modo. Right, so shading. Let's come out of. We set to. What do we set to? Let's look. We're in Eevee, so let's try out cycles. There we go. Cool, and then new, and then just so we can see, let's make it red and shiny, and what we expect to see here is when it changes over to Octane, ideally it should, he says, carry on working. I don't know, so I'm pretty sure there was legacy presets, missing paths, cool. That doesn't look correct. I think there's an option before to use settings, saves off, no. I think there's an option somewhere previously where you could use default Blender materials in Octane, but I think it was something you had to click or something. Let's look at this. So Octane Imager. So Imager is let's explain it. Image is like your post processing, I guess, in a way. It's not. It's a separate process. Right, okay, let's just show. So yeah, Yeah, so go to Imager. So yeah, Imager is like your camera settings effectively. So yeah, your exposure, vignetting. So Octane also features like some real-time compositing stuff. It's actually pretty good. You can sort of load in. I do this tons. You can load in like film looks. Look at this beautiful, beautiful thing we've got going on here. There's just nice, artistic, bright pink, shiny teapot. But yeah, you can load in like old film stock emulation, which works very, very well. It's absolutely gorgeous. Worst scene in the universe to demonstrate this with, but trust me, it's very good. And also your denoising and stuff is here, because there's denoising in Octane. And denoising's really good. So let's just go. Yeah, so we're here. So let's have a look. So we've got Imager preset, missing paths. Missing paths. Let's go to preferences. Is there anything we need to do in here? File paths. Add-ons. Let's go down to Octane Blender version blah 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 blah. Okay, preferences. Oh, okay, you got an option for default material type. This could be good. This could be good. Check Octane local DB path. Do I need to set that manually? And also, if I do, what would I set that to? Yeah. So I'd need to. Well, I'd want to do that by default because I don't want to use Blender's color management because it's not. It's a nice way to put it. Very good. Okay, default material type universal is wank. So here's another thing, right? So in Blenderland, this guy here, principled BSDF. So they've started to sort of reel back from this a little bit recently, where it's like an overall trend thing, I guess, in 3D of like you used to have a bunch of individual like shader types, and then a lot of people were like, oh, let's just do universal shader types. Now it's like, oh, actually universal shaders are kind of sucky and annoying, and they make things worse. Let's just not do that. And yeah, like, so Blender removed a bunch of their individual shaders and then made this principal BSDF. To be fair, at the time, Blender's shaders were a little bit messy, and this is an improvement over most of them, but inside Octane World, they're very much separate, and they have got a universal material, which is, let's go to here. So yeah, in Modo, we just do this, and we set an override, so you can override, you know, and it will recreate your node setup, but with Octane, and it will choose the most appropriate thing. So it's saying, oh, well, this already was quite glossy, so let's make this a glossy material. But we can override it, and then you've got Universal here. But see how many options Universal has, because it's kind of sucky. And then, yeah, so you've got like diffuse, which is, you know, will only do diffuse things. You've got specular, which is like, you know, transparent effectively. Metallic, which is metal, so on and so forth. And there's like a layer system, basically. So yeah, if you do texture, sorry, where is it? Material, there we go. And there you go. So yeah, you've got like this whole thing of like doing composite materials and stuff, so you can like layer up different shaders inside a shader. And it's the, there we go, material layers. There we go. So yeah, you've got this like layer system, and then you sort of just like add these layers together. Where is it? Layer. Yeah, you got all these options there. Whatever. So yeah, you can layer them up instead of having one global thing, which everyone does eventually if you do more than like relatively simple materials. Right, so let's get this fucking working then. So we're in Octane. Octane post-process. So post-processing is kind of, I'll show you that in a bit. So environment should be Octane environment. Okay, that's fine. So there's, yeah, default Blender thing. You can use options in here, which can also be exposed in the node graph. But we'll do a daylight environment. There we go. And we'll just do a compatibility version. We'll just change this to Nishita, which if you use Blender will be familiar because it's the same bit of science model gubbins. There we go, daylight environment. Oh, okay. That's how they connect up. Nice. Octane environment. Oh, there we go. Right, so how do I know? How do I know which kernel I'm on? So yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a thing which just let you use the default Blender. We don't want to do that anyway, really, to be honest. But interesting. So let's go back to our object now. We can see something. We've got a. We haven't got. Oh, okay. Let's delete that, and then we'll go new, and that creates an octane material. Cool. Creates a universal. Can I change that? I have to go down to here. Universal. Let's change that to a specular. There we go. Okie dokie. Let's turn down the roughness. Back to where we were before. So we just need to determine what kernel this is using. It should be able to tell me, really. Should we look at this? There we go. Yeah, so this is the post-processing. It's another thing that Octane does. So when it's finished, it goes bloop. And it can do things like bloom or glare, or you can do things like chromatic aberration. So I can have like, give it a sec. Chromatic aberration. Okay. Well, you can do like real-time compositing in Blender, but Blender's compositor's kind of sucky. These are like good for quick and dirties. Ooh, fog. That's nice. Light beams. Do I have a light in the scene? I do have a light in the scene. Where is it? There you are. Yeah, you can see a bit of post-processing happening. Whatever. So, and then yeah, you want to kind of leave this on Imager because this is one thing I used to trip up on inside the end menu. You've got like the Blender versus like the image management. Again, I've not done this in a little while inside Blender, but yeah, I used to trip up between using the Octane Imager versus Blender's color management stuff, and it used to make things look, used to get unpredictable results effectively. So okay, so let's just keep an eye on this quick. Let's go back to up here, render settings, and we'll go kernel. We'll do direct lighting, and we'll see. Give that a spin and see how long it takes. That takes a second. So I've changed this to PMC. Give it a spin. Took 2 seconds. It's not very scientific though, is it? Because I've physically moved the camera, so it's effectively just interesting. Right, so where are my options here? So let's just assume that's working for a sec. So if we go into Octane App Core, Octane Server, yeah, because actually no, that's a point. Surely my options should be. Okay, right. I'm gonna hit up old Gwaggle here. Blender Octane incompatible output node. Octane's own output node now. So where do I do that? Okay, just delete that then, and then just go to here and just do what? Octane output, material output? That looks the same. Well, alright. Surface. Kernel. Okay. Change transmission color. Right, there we go. Okay. Here we go, no kernel to say. You can't see my screen, but it says, "Hi, I'm fairly new to trying out Octane in Blender, but after installing and shifting to Octane as my render engine within Blender, I do not get any Octane kernel settings." Blah, blah, blah. Go to File, New Octane Default Startup. Go to File, New Octane Default Startup. Oh. Huh. Well, bugger my ostrich, that's gone and bloody worked, isn't it? What? So, okay, shading. Okay. So, go out to here. Oh, we've got some. Get rid of some post. Okay, that's working now as well. That wasn't working before. Let's check out our chromatic aberration. Is that working? Yay! Look at that. Hooray! That's a bug. So, someone said, yes, they did change something very recently. We're now forced to use file new Octane default setup to have access to Octane kernel for rendering. Plus it loads in the same layout that shrinks the viewport, which I guess is this, which shrinks the viewport, and adds separate nodes with a separate node with every little Octane bit and piece completely dominating your screen. In typical Octane fashion, there's nothing about this change in the documentation. I think there's a video. Wow. It's not documented. Sick. That's what we like to see. Alright, well, let's go back to here. That's a negative point against, because the Modo integration is actually pretty nice. I remember for a little while I was using it in Blender. I found myself preferring this. So one thing you can't do, so if we go into the default old school renderer and turn it back on, you can navigate inside this window. In here you can't, but actually it kind of doesn't matter because you have your render camera here. You can just do that anyway, so whatever, it's fine. It's interactive enough that you can just sort of, make some difference. So and also there's little nice things like what I just did there with, like, if I want to change this from a specular, I just do convert to metallic, right? And it updates all the, well, no, not there, it hasn't, but yeah, it updates all your inputs and does some other nice things as well. I quite like it. And this is great quite nicely, and also it hooks in quite nicely, quite elegantly into the Modo stuff. So things like Modo camera settings come across, Modo environment settings come across, and various other bits and bobs. Anyway, let's get back on topic because we've got to working now. That's good. So let's just do the same thing again. So we'll delete. We'll go Shift A, search, and we'll do monkey. Get ourselves a Suzanne. And posh, should I say that? Suzanne. I wonder if anyone's noticed I've got a weird accent. See, I don't think I have got a weird accent. Oh shit! Let's just turn it back down to 5. I don't think I do. Some people say I've got a weird accent. Some people don't. I live up north, born down south. I spent half my life up north, and my family are all from up north. So I've got a mixed accent. I've spent half my life up north. I spent a chunk of my life up north, so I've got a mixed accent between northern and southern. And down south, I take the piss out of me because I say things wrong. And up north, I don't know what I think. I don't care what I think. I don't care what everyone thinks. Right, so I care what you think. Right, new universal 6. So what? I wish it did the. It's not the end of the world. I wish there was like a little button to be like, do a flippy row on this, so I don't have to use universal by default. But I guess it's just a case of doing this. Yeah. So if I do let's do metallic. Yeah, do that and make it diffuse color. Let's add octane texture. RGB color. Oh, that's quite nice. I like that. That's a little nicer than. That's a little bit nicer than. That's a little bit. Let's do specular. That's a little bit nicer than what you do in Modo, which is kind of annoying. So that's interesting. I like that more. Okay, and then so this is like we've got a mixed material thing here, so I can do search, and I just do specular, specular. Oh, not specular layer. I mean that. I can't remember how that system works. And to be honest, I don't actually do that often. Specular material. Boop. And then I should be able to do this second material, and then we've got a blend between the two. So if I do 0, and then I can do, I don't know why you'd ever have half metallic, half transparent, but not very physically accurate, but you can do it. So yeah, you can just do like this and merge materials together, right? So you don't need one master material. Anyway, we're getting off topic. So none of this video's been on topic. So there is that. Oh, function delete. Right, so let's just look in our settings, come back up to render settings, and then we'll look at okie dokie. So Bum, bum, bum. I always found that like it feels like Octane's slower in Blender for some reason. Let's do a little test actually, because I had this weird theory. So if I go and do, let's just delete this material, right? We'll do a new one. Keep it on, yeah, keep it universal, why not? And then we'll just do a. That's a very good point. I never use this, so I have no idea how it works. Give me 1 minute. Go into here and then change this to specular. Right, let's do a little transparent transmission, and we'll have a red, completely shiny Suzanne, and we'll do the same thing in. So we'll swap over to octane. So let's look at this quickly. So let's render. So 500 samples, which took 6 seconds. Let's give it a little spin. Let's just do that again, and we won't change our camera afterwards. So look. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we try that in cycles. Nothing's going to happen. But, so that's 6 seconds. Remember that. There we go. And then we'll just do transmission. There we go. And then we'll just do object, world, and then get rid of that. Function delete, and then we will do node add. Oh no, we'll just do it this way. Find, nope, Shift A, and then we do sky texture, and then we just do that into environment. I think. Put on GPU. Is that even going to work? No, it doesn't. Well, shit. But let's just create a new file, and we'll do it versus exactly. Actually, no, 6 seconds. Let's do. Oh shit! Hold up. Function backspace. Got a weird thing going on my keyboard, so there we go. Monkey, and then we'll just do. And we do subdivision surface. Change it up to, I think it was 5. And then we'll go to shading, and we'll go to here, and then 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 we'll go to here, we'll go like this, boop, and we'll go transmission, and then weight 100, no roughness, and then if we do base color red, and then we go into here, world, go to here, and then we do Shift A, and we do sky, texture, we'll set this to Nishita, it already is, and then color, there we go, right. So that's 1024 samples, and how long will that take? Let's do 500 samples. So let's just do render image. It's not a very scientific thing. Also, I forgot to put my subdivs up. But that's cool. It's like a crystal skull, but a monkey. You know, they're all fake, by the way. You know, someone who believes in crystal skulls, tell them they're wrong. Whoa! 4096. That's why. Hang on. Max, let's just do 500, and let's also quickly fix this. And then we'll do 5 in there, and then we'll go back to here. Render image. Give it a second. Okay. "19 seconds. Cool. Right, and then we will go into here. We'll go from cycles to octane. Okay. And then what we'll do is go to object, and then we'll delete that, and we'll do new, and then we'll change this to, go back to material down here, and then we'll change this to specular, and then we'll just do transmission. We'll make that one also pink, and then we'll go to world, get rid of that, and then we'll do octane environment. So we'll do N daylight, there you go, daylight environment, octane environment. There we go. Okay, and then we'll change this to Nishita. Different time of day. I should have maybe paid attention to the... Probably should have paid attention to where the sun was at. Anyway, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Right, so let's go back to our material. And then we'll just do roughness 0. There we go. It's a nicer pink before, wasn't it? There we go. Look at that. Wow. Yeah. Oh, it's a randomly weird, nice time of day before. Doesn't really matter. But let's do that. There you go. Similar time of day. Right, so let's just do render image. It's 19 seconds. It was 19 seconds in cycles. And this one is taking... How many samples are doing? Okay, it's doing 500 as well. Ooh. No way. Oh no. Yeah, no, it's slower. It's taking longer. Imagine that. Okay, that's unusual. So we'll do one last test. So that's 35 seconds. Let's do something a bit more apples to apples. We'll do the same thing in Modo as well, right? So that shouldn't take. That should be. I mean, like again, you do individual scenes. You get like false positives. Let's do this again. Don't save. And then yeah, let's do a cube. Let's do a cube. And then let's do. Yeah, let's do a cube. Why not? Does it have a teapot? I can't remember. No, it doesn't, does it? So we do. Let's just do a. So we'll go edit, Control A, I think, and then subdivide twice. Come out, and then we'll go here. We'll do subdivision surface. There we go. Turn to 5, 5, and 5. There we go. 6, 5, and 5. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing in Modo. Go to here, and you get to see how few. Doop, doop, doop. There we go, and we've got the same cube. Hang on, or do we? There we go. So we've got a cube, and we'll just do Dave, and then we will go into. We'll just set it face on. It's going to be apples to apples to apples, but we'll get it. We'll get it somewhere. Right. So shading. We'll get it like that. What's the thing to go back into camera view? Can't remember. That in it. Oh, camera view navigation is what it's called. I don't remember because I've got this set to a. Where is it? View, camera, navigation, viewpoint. Align view. See this? See this? They see this? This janky crap? I hate it. Come into here. And if I like... I think it's like... What was it again? It was like... What was the switch to camera? I forget. Is it this? Hey, there it is. And yeah, like you can just do this and then toggle this on and it just does camera view navigation by default. But let's just... Is that in the end menu, actually? So it's got our camera selected, and then we do view. Do we have camera view? See, I don't know where that lives inside default Blender. Camera. View. See? You have to know where it is. I can't remember. Fuck it. Right, what I'll do, we'll match that view. We'll do that. Right. Cool. Right. So, just in the spirit of things, we're just going to do the same thing we did before, and then we'll do. Let's slow it down. Let's do specular once again. I know I'm doing a lot of specular, but whatever. And then transmission. We'll set this to bright red. There we go. Is that 1-1? woman, that's fine, it's close enough. And then we'll do the same thing in here, and then we will do grab that guy, we'll do delete, and then we'll go boop, 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 boop. How many clicks this is? Alright, we'll do specular, and then we'll just do transmission, and we'll make that one pure red. There we go. Is that going to work? Let's have a look. Boop. No, it's not. So what we'll do, same thing again, we'll go into world, and then we'll do daylight environment. There we go. And we'll set this back to Nishita, and we'll do this. Kerboof. And there we go. So we'll do 500 on both of these. And then we'll see. Let's do. So we'll leave this at its default settings. So let's go back to. Let's just double check. Object, and we've got roughness set to 0.06. Are those the same? That is Dave. There we go. Give that a go. Boop. And then we'll go to here, and then we'll go to daylight environment. Set to Nishita. See how much faster that is. And then it's a different type of day. Fuck's sake. Hang on. What was it default to? World. It's very hard to mix it one to one. What I'll do, it's going to take a little longer this way, but it's fun. Go to physical sun. There we go, and we'll set the time of day to 8 AM. Might make it 5 AM. 6 AM. Close enough. Right. That's vaguely similar, I guess. Right, so what we're going to do, we'll just do render here, render image. And this is, oh, let's just make sure that that's not running. That's not fair. That ain't fair on no one. Hang on. But was that running before? This is very scientific, isn't it? So we'll go and do render image. Did I check the roughness? Don't think I did. Anyway, so 80 out of 50. So this feels very slow. (192). Yes, we'll see how long this takes. That took. Still going. Jesus. 34 a second. 34.07 it's saying. That's my M per second. 32 seconds. And noise is all fucked. Let's just go back into Modo, and then my roughness is 0.06. They said. Look, and the way it works inside Modo is a bit different. You just do it all in this preview viewport. There's no like render window thing. I don't know why actually. It's a bit of a weird one. That's actually probably like a negative, I suppose. I don't know. It doesn't actually bother me much. Right, so there we go. I haven't checked my render settings, but they should both be default. And we'll watch this. 36, 38, 39, 40. So 1280 by 720, 42. Still doing 5000. Did I forget to press enter? 500. 500. There we go. Just give a little wiggle. Let's just restart that. Okay, 1632. And we'll see how long it's going to take. 176, 272, 400. 11 seconds. What's my resolution in Blender? Is that 1920 by 1080? It's under here, isn't it? Under here or here? Yeah, so let's just up our resolution to match in Modo. So we'll go to shading, final color output, and then, no, sorry, we'll go to render frame, and then we'll do 1920 by 1080. Right, let's try that again. 64, 96. 38, yeah, so it does run slower, I think, in Blender, which is odd. Give it a second. 352, 464. Okay, 24 seconds versus 32. So actually, quite a lot slower, and they're quite. I mean, you can't see this one's background turn off and this one's showing, but that is less. Let's just turn it to 0.6. I don't know if the numbers correspond. 0.6, let's do that. That looks similarly noisy. Give that another go. Or like, you know, rough, I guess. Really, it just translates into noise, doesn't it? Riveting. 27 seconds versus... So it was marginally slower. Versus 32. Not very scientific. It feels slower than it should be. Inside Blender, which is very strange. It's very, very strange. Because then, yeah, if we do another new one... No, that's Remix. Ah, damn you. Oh, that's crashed. Remix always crashes. Right, so... do another new. Don't save. We will do 3. Ooh, edit 3. There we go. No, Control A. Subdivide, and then we go back out, press that, go here. I can't remember the default keyboard shortcut for this. Give me a break. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Was it 5? It was 5. Did I match my subdivisions? I don't know if I did. Did I? Did I match my sub? No, I didn't. 6. I think by default in Modo 5. I think by default in Modo, like it does. Octane does adaptive subdivision anyway, or something. Memory serves. Let's see if that makes a difference though. Setting that to more subdivisions. Don't imagine it will make much difference, to be honest. 38. No, it's gone down. So that's like your throughput, I guess. I don't know what the MS stands for. But, oh no, it's gone back up again. So that took 27 seconds. No, it took a second less, so yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, right, so we've got a new one here. And then we'll just do this again. Rendering engine. No, rendering shading. There we go. Boop, boop, boop. And then what have we got? We have principled. We'll just do transmission, weight 100, base color. Oh, that's also going to not help. Right, let's turn that off. Okay, so roughness down to, let's do 0.06. Is that it? Go into here. And we'll do object, world. Oh, this is tedious. Sky texture, Nishita, color, boop. There we go. And then, that's not the right colour. Then we go object, base colour, change that to red, and we go, right, nice. And then we go to render image. And how long does cycles take? That's 4,000 samples. That's not correct. Damn you. Stop it. Let's do 500. 500 samples. Right. Render image. It's on the CPU. It's interesting. See how long it takes on the CPU. Remaining 1 minute. Well, let's not do that. Shut up. Stop it. Right. GPU compute. Let's stop being silly. Let's make sure we're set to optics as well. Let's go into system optics. There we go. Yep. Good. Right. Try again. Render image. This should be faster, I think. 80. There we go. Bap. 12. Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? There's some weird artifacts there as well. What's that about? Ah, that's odd. Let's use limit surface. Try it again. I'm just pissing about. So yeah, I think my overall takeaway is, so far, yeah, there's still that weird blocky guy. Strange. Don't know what that's about. Well, anyway, Octane. So, yeah, so you'd need to... That's lame. So we do new default. Okay. Oh, right. And then we've got name, octane kernel. What kernel is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay. And if I do... Oh, that's weird. Okay, well I can just save that to my startup. PMC. Let's see what my defaults are here actually. Let's have a look. So we've got max samples 500, previous samples 500, diffuse depth, whatever. Epsilon. Epsilon's a very interesting feature inside. It's basically like the gap that photons squeeze through. That all seems to be in order. Adaptive sampling is not turned on by default. Okay, and then okay, yeah, it looks to be about the same. Subsamples, double check the subsamples, but that should just speed things up, not slow them down. So go into kernel, yeah, path tracing, and then we've got yeah, adaptive. No, that's adaptive sampling, deep image, AOV, and then let's go to settings. Even might be under here. Subsampling, yeah, turned off. But then that will speed things up rather than slow them down. So I don't know. Yeah. Weird. So I don't know what my takeaway is, I guess. I've got to finish up and go and get on with life. But for anyone who stumbles across the video, I hope they have a nice time. But I think in conclusion, right, the motivation is I might have to move away from Modo if it continues to be buggy, because I can't get these bugs fixed because the development on it has stopped, which sucks bum. So I'm just evaluating Octane inside Blender, and for the most part it seems fine. The amount of clicking around needed to get back to where you need to get to is fine, I guess. Yeah, I think, yeah, because, yeah, and going forward, I think I was going to do it. I think I want to first figure out, I might try the Blender plugin thing, because I want to figure out if it actually is slower inside Blender, because that would suck if you have like a speed penalty for using Octane and Blender. There shouldn't be. I think it just defers to the, I don't know what's happening. I think maybe it's sending a real-time preview of the local scene into the Octane server and then returning that back to the viewport. I don't know. But yeah, that would really suck bum if there was a render penalty for using Octane and Blender over, let's say, Modo. But it does seem to go slower. What I should have done, if I thought ahead, I'd have the same scene with basic materials and then reconstruct it back in Blender and test them one for one at the same resolution, same camera settings inside Modo and Blender. I might do that offline, because then I'll have the answer more categorically, because most of my recent scenes are all using Octane anyway, so I'll just be reconnecting up something with some simple stuff. I might do that, but also it's whether or not I can be bothered because I don't think I'm modeling Blender still. Maybe just render, because a lot of the bugs at the moment in Modo come from rendering. I don't know. And occasionally it is nice to use cycles for certain stuff, because it's just low drama, but I don't really love cycles. It's okay. Anyway, I don't know what the conclusion of this video is. Maybe you've learned something about Octane. You probably haven't, if you're a Blender person. I don't know why you even find this. But if anyone wants any videos on Octane and Blender, once I get it figured out, I could do some. There doesn't seem to be that many videos on the internet about it.